One of the atomic reactors at the Chernobyl atomic power plant near the city of Kiev was damaged, and there is speculation in Moscow that people were injured and may have died.
What if I told you that deep inside the ruins of Chernobyl, there's something still alive? A dark shape, hidden under layers of steel and concrete. It doesn't breathe, it doesn't move, but it kills. Scientists call it the elephant's foot, and for decades, nobody dared to touch it. But now, artificial intelligence has scanned it, and what it revealed is more terrifying than anyone expected. Stay with me, because once you hear what's happening inside this radioactive monster, you'll realize Chernobyl's disaster never really ended. April 26, 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant explodes, and within seconds, the world changes forever. A nuclear reactor, hot enough to melt steel, collapses in on itself. Molten uranium, sand, and concrete swirl together into a deadly lava, something the world had never seen before. That lava slid through the plant's hallways, burning through pipes, floors, and walls. When it cooled, it formed strange shapes, solid rock-like masses. One of them looked like the rough, cracked skin of an elephant. Workers gave it a name that stuck, the elephant's foot. But this wasn't just rock. It was a solidified piece of radioactive death. Standing near it for just a few minutes was enough to burn your body from the inside. In the early days, exposure meant death within days, and yet, that was only the beginning. The elephant's foot is made of something scientists call corium, material so rare it only forms in nuclear disasters. Imagine lava but hotter, heavier, and infused with uranium. It doesn't just melt metal, it eats it. Concrete, steel, everything in its path. It consumed it all. At 3 Mile Island, corium formed but never escaped. At Fukushima, it stayed hidden. But in Chernobyl, it spread like a monster, carving through the plant's foundations. The elephant's foot wasn't just a piece of history, it was a new element of destruction. Something we still don't fully understand. Radiation is invisible, silent, and merciless. Unlike the glow you see in movies, the elephant's foot didn't shine. It sat there quietly, waiting. But the radiation it gave off, 10,000 roentgens per hour. To put that into perspective, standing near it was like standing inside a nuclear reactor with no protection. 30 seconds would make you dizzy. 2 minutes, you'd vomit. 5 minutes, you'd die. And yet, people approached it. In 1996, workers used a camera on wheels to take photos. The first picture was a blurry mess, as if the object itself refused to be captured. One myth claims the photographer later died from exposure, adding another layer of fear to its legend that the elephant's foot didn't need to move to kill. It just existed. The Soviet Union tried to bury it. They poured concrete, built a massive sarcophagus around the reactor, and declared the danger contained. But radiation doesn't obey walls. It leaked through cracks, poisoning air, water, and soil. Over 400,000 people were forced to leave their homes. Entire cities became ghost towns. Children developed thyroid cancer at alarming rates. Generations would feel the shadow of that night in 1986. In 2016, engineers slid the largest movable structure ever built, a steel arch the size of a stadium, over the ruins. The new safe confinement. It was meant to last a century, but even with all that protection, the elephant's foot still waits inside, crumbling slowly, but still alive. And scientists knew they couldn't just lock it away forever. They had to study it. But how do you study something that kills anyone who gets too close? For years, scientists tried. They drilled into the elephant's foot, took samples, even shot bullets at pieces of it to test its strength. They discovered cracks forming, pieces flaking off like dried stone, but every fragment carried the same deadly radiation. In 2001, the elephant's foot was weaker, cooler, but still dangerous. Standing near it for an hour could still end your life. Then, in 2022, when Russian troops invaded Ukraine and stormed Chernobyl, fears rose again. Soldiers dug trenches in the exclusion zone. Radiation monitors spiked. And suddenly, the world realized the danger was still here. That's when researchers turned to something new. a technology that could finally see inside without getting close. Artificial intelligence.ai-powered scans were able to create a detailed 3D model of the elephant's foot. For the first time, scientists could look beneath its surface, and what they found was chilling. Deep inside, the mass is still active. Uranium crystals form and collapse over and over again. The elephant's foot is decaying, but in a way that makes it even more unpredictable. Parts of it are turning to dust, fragile enough to crumble with a touch. That dust can carry radioactive particles that could escape into the environment if disturbed. And some scans even suggest that the elephant's foot might be seeping tiny amounts of material into the ground below. If that reaches groundwater, the consequences could be catastrophic. The AI didn't just map an object. It revealed a sleeping beast, weakened but still dangerous. Still alive. Nearly 40 years after Chernobyl, the elephant's foot hasn't died. It doesn't glow, it doesn't move, but it changes, quietly. In ways we're only now beginning to understand. AI scans have given us answers, but those answers remind us that disasters don't end when the fire goes out. They echo, they evolve, they wait. The elephant's foot is more than just a relic of the past. It's a warning carved in stone. A reminder of what happens when humanity plays with power it can't control. And maybe the most chilling part, it will outlive us all. If you want more stories hidden behind history's darkest disasters, click on the video appearing now. An AI scan of the infamous Chernobyl's elephant's foot. The ultra-radioactive mass of molten nuclear fuel left behind by the infamous reactor explosion has uncovered a stunning revelation that has left scientists dumbstruck. But what did the AI find, and what does it mean for our understanding of the disaster that changed the world forever? Join us to find out. The elephant's foot. In the autumn of 1986, the remains of the Chernobyl nuclear facility remained a site filled with risks, stillness, and terror. Teams of responders had been laboring tirelessly for an extended period to combat the catastrophic event that had shocked the globe not long ago. Clad in bulky protective gear and with their countenances obscured by masks, these workers strove to contain the devastation. Although their attire couldn't fully conceal the grim reality, the earth beneath, the fourth reactor was contaminated with an unknown substance, unseen by human eyes until then. They encountered a steam corridor in the basement that was supposed to transport vapor and heat from the reactor. However, instead of steam, they were greeted by a stream of black lava flowing from the damaged core. This molten lava had breached the sturdy concrete walls, creating a destructive path and eventually coming to rest on the basement floor. The biggest and most terrifying form of this molten rock appeared as a twisted black blob weighing nearly 2 tons. It was cumbersome, unattractive, and unsettling, yet somehow seemed infused with a quiet strength. The laborers who initially laid eyes on it understood they dare not approach any closer. Their senses blared with alerts. The emanating radiation was so intense that mere minutes in its proximity could spell doom. Cameras were cautiously advanced around a bend, snapping images in the faint light. This ominous creature, birthed from flames and chaos, swiftly acquired a chilling moniker, the elephant's foot. During that moment, the mass remained scorching, still emanating dangerous levels of energy. Tests indicated that being just 3 feet from it would expose a person to a fatal amount of radiation in under 4 minutes. It was an unforgettable image for all who witnessed it. How did this phenomenon come into existence? The incident started during a routine examination that was supposed to take place at the Chernobyl power plant. The operators were inspecting reactor number 4 when a series of errors led to the most catastrophic nuclear event in history. An unfortunate combination of human error and a flawed design caused a test meant to ensure safety to result in disaster. The power level in the reactor unexpectedly increased, causing alarms to go off in the control room. Attempts were made by the workers to initiate an emergency shutdown, but it was unsuccessful. The control rods, which were meant to stabilize the reactor and regulate its temperature, proved to be insufficient. To make matters worse, they were lowered into the core after it was too late, resulting in them breaking and becoming stuck. Rather than cooling down the reactor, this malfunction caused the temperature to increase even further. The temperature within the reactor rapidly increased, causing the water meant for cooling to evaporate. The growing steam created immense pressure within the reactor, resembling a massive bomb on the brink of detonation. Eventually, the initial explosion occurred. The force of the blast was so immense that it propelled the 4 million pound lid of the reactor assembly through the building's roof. The reactor suffered irreparable damage. The cooling water that had not yet been depleted flowed into the scorching core, immediately turning into steam upon contact with the burning fuel rods. Subsequently, a more powerful explosion occurred, surpassing the initial one in magnitude. The Chernobyl sky glowed red from the flames and radioactive debris penetrating the atmosphere. The lethal substances released that evening carried fatal consequences across vast distances. Lacking the ability to be cooled, the fuel transforms into a dangerous liquid fire, creating one of the most perilous substances in existence. The elephant's foot emerged from the intense disorder. The material was constructed from corium, a peculiar black substance formed from the fusion of molten nuclear fuel with concrete, steel, and sand. Its appearance varied, resembling tree bark in certain areas and glass in others. With a wrinkled texture that suggested a halt in its movement, researchers who examined it concluded that it primarily consisted of silicon dioxide, along with traces of uranium, calcium, iron, zirconium, aluminum, magnesium, and potassium. However, for the initial observers, the focus was not on the chemical composition, but rather on the need for survival. Explorers uncovered the location of the dangerous mass in December 1986, locating it in room 217/2, which was approximately 15 meters from the damaged reactor, and a few meters above the ground. The molten-like substance had melted through 2 meters of reinforced concrete before making its way through various pathways to reach that specific spot. Its fiery presence left a trail of destruction and devastation wherever it went. Being in close proximity to the elephant's foot felt as though one was facing mortality itself. The radiation emitted from it didn't just cause surface burns, but penetrated deep into the body, destroying cells and leading to illness and death. The nearer you approached, the more it shortened your lifespan. Initially, photos of the mass were captured using remote cameras due to the extreme danger it posed to humans. Despite the passage of time, the elephant's foot continued to be hazardous. Although its potency had somewhat diminished since the initial catastrophic months, it evolved from simply molten fuel into a representation of the consequences of human mistakes coupled with risky designs colliding. It served as a stark reminder of the precarious nature of safety and how a single error could contaminate the environment for countless years. But this isn't the first time this happened. Also, what's the content of this foot? How did it form? Stay with us to find out more. The fire that became stone corium is considered the most hazardous substance ever produced by humans. Only formed during catastrophic nuclear reactor meltdowns. Its existence is a chilling anomaly, a nightmarish reality born from the depths of disaster. In Chernobyl, a substance called corium was released. The reactor number 4 had a coolant failure, leading to a series of disasters culminating in a meltdown. The uranium fuel in the reactor increased in temperature rapidly, with around 1/3 being released into the atmosphere, spreading radioactive contamination over vast distances. The remaining 160 kilograms of uranium melted into a hot, molten mass reaching temperatures of thousands of degrees. Similar to a blazing stream, it started to move downwards in search of a way out. 8 days after the incident, the melted fuel successfully breached the lower shield of the reactor. Its unstoppable force made its way through pipes in the basement, flowed into steam corridors, and managed to penetrate through 2 meters of sturdy steel and concrete. What was once formidable and unyielding was now mere sustenance for this fiery beast. The lethal lava continued to advance until it eventually cooled down and solidified in the underground of the facility. The chilled substance expanded beyond just uranium, absorbing all it came into contact with. It consisted of molten uranium oxide, sand, steel, concrete, silica, glass, and bits of the reactor. This peculiar blend was dubbed corium, a name that would eventually evoke terror. Corium is not only hazardous but also scarce. It has only been seen a few times in history. The initial occurrence was in 1979 at the 3 Mile Island reactor in Pennsylvania due to an accident leading to a partial meltdown. The next well-known incident was at Chernobyl. Subsequently, corium was formed 3 more times during the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear catastrophe in Japan. Whenever it emerged, it was always unexpected, and undesired scientists refer to it as the most uncommon man-made substance due to its exclusive production during nuclear disasters. Despite its hazardous nature, it has been examined under controlled conditions. In laboratories, experts have intentionally generated corium in limited quantities, not due to incidents, but to gain insight into its peculiar properties. The scariest thing about corium is its intense heat. Even once it has left the reactor, corium can still reach temperatures almost comparable to the sun's surface. This extreme heat is long-lasting and persistent, continuing to destroy anything it comes into contact with. Unlike lava from a volcano, corium is not a natural occurrence, but rather a dangerous concoction of various elements, including uranium fuel rods, shattered control rods, reactor metal, concrete base, and newly created substances resulting from the reaction of burning uranium with air, water, and steam. It is a hybrid creation of destruction, fueled by human hands. In scientific facilities, the substance, known as corium, is closely observed. It remains both frightening and oddly captivating in this setting. Its movement resembles that of volcanic lava, flowing in a slow and graceful manner that is also destructive. The substance effortlessly breaks down concrete as it flows, disregarding any barriers in its way. Despite its destructive force, some have found a certain beauty in the glowing and flowing appearance of corium. The deceptive allure of beauty hides a sinister reality. Being in close proximity to corium outdoors guarantees a fatal outcome. Its lethal radiation is insidious, noiseless, and unforgiving. The elephant's foot, a notorious mass in Chernobyl's basement, was composed of corium, retaining its deadly nature for years, instantly fatal to anyone who dared to come near it. Corium serves as a cautionary tale, showcasing the consequences of human error and the transformation of machines from sources of light and power into fiery beasts. It warns us that even the most robust barriers can crumble under the destructive force of this molten river. The silent destroyer. But nothing remained beautiful at Chernobyl. As the molten corium solidified into a nightmarish sculpture, the underground spaces below the destroyed reactor transformed into a hazardous labyrinth with formations of lava hanging from above and rising from below. Steam valves were trapped beneath solid rock, now imbued with radioactive energy. Amidst this eerie and dangerous scene was a well-known centigrade wrinkled mass known as the elephant's foot. The elephant's foot is frequently referred to as the most hazardous waste ever produced by humans. Unlike other corium formations confined within reactors, the one at Chernobyl escaped and slithered through pipes and concrete before coming to rest in the exposed basement. It was a visible menace, quietly emitting deadly radiation. In order to grasp the extent of its peril, one must first grasp the concept of radiation. Atoms form the foundation of all matter, and certain atoms are steady. For instance, hydrogen, with only one proton, remains undisturbed. On the other hand, radioactive atoms, such as uranium, are volatile behemoths. Uranium, the substance used at Chernobyl, contains 92 protons and 146 neutrons in its core. This equilibrium is precarious, and due to its lack of stability, uranium consistently seeks to transform into a different state. As uranium and other atoms lose stability, they release particles that are like small bursts of energy. Protons, neutrons, electrons, and even high-energy photons are released from within these atoms. Through this transformation, uranium turns into different elements like plutonium and eventually transforms into lead. The particles that are emitted during this process are known as radiation. Not all forms of radiation are equal.
Stay with us.
Nanonizing
face
radiation,
of Chernobyl's
such as that
elephant's
emitted
foot
by your phone
in
or a light bulb,
1986, an
lacks the ability
unprecedented
to break
event
the
occurred
connections
when the
between
nuclear
atoms
reactor
and
at
molecules.
Chernobyl melted down,
In contrast,
resulting in the
ionizing
formation
radiation,
of a bizarre
like the
and
type
lethal
unleashed
mass.
during the Chernobyl
This
disaster,
amalgamation of
possesses
uranium
the
fuel,
capability
steel,
to destroy these
concrete,
connections.
and sand
This type
appeared
of radiation
alien-like
is
and
capable of
posed a
breaking down
significant
molecules,
threat due to its
altering
intense
their behavior.
heat and toxicity.
When this radiation comes
Over the
into
years,
contact with the
the
human
elephant's
body,
foot
it
has
interacts
remained
with living
ominously
cells,
silent,
causing harm to the
retaining its
DNA that
dangerous
contains
and
the
haunting
genetic
legacy
instructions for
as
life.
a reminder of one of the
Occasionally,
most
the body is
catastrophic
able to heal
disasters
itself
in
from
history.
harm, with
Initially,
new cells forming
the
and
elephant's
broken
foot was
parts being
considered a
fixed.
terrifying
However,
entity
when the
that
damage
nobody
is
was
severe,
brave
the
enough to go
cells
near.
start to
The
deteriorate,
levels of radiation
causing
emitted
some to
were
perish
so extreme
and others to
that even
undergo
a brief
abnormal
exposure
growth,
could
which can
result in
result in
fatality.
cancer.
Workers
In
resorted to
severe
using
instances,
remote cameras
organs
and
cease
mirrors
to
on
function
long
altogether,
sticks to take
making
unclear
radiation
pictures,
sickness a
with
torturous
each
and
snapshot
gradual process.
carrying significant
Initial
danger.
symptoms
Over
such
time,
as fever,
the intensity
nausea,
of its
and
heat has
disorientation
gradually
may
decreased.
arise,
The
but
structure
as
has
time
developed
passes,
cracks. Its
the
exterior now
development of
crumbled
cancer,
into dust,
organ
and
failure,
the radiation
and
has
overall
lessened.
weakness become more
Nevertheless,
prominent.
it still
The
poses a
elephant's
risk
foot
to this
emitted
day,
such intense
serving as a
radiation
stark
that
reminder
survival
that
was
mistakes
impossible.
made by
In
humans
the
can
period
have
following its
long-lasting
creation,
consequences
it was
that
recorded at
surpass
nearly
multiple
10,000
generations.
roentgens per hour.
In recent times,
To contextualize
advanced
this,
technology
only
has
a
been
fraction of
focused
that
on
dose
examining
is
this
lethal.
powerful force
Being in close
that has been
proximity to
overlooked.
the elephant's foot for
Utilizing
just an hour
artificial
was
intelligence,
equivalent to receiving
researchers
over
were
4
able to
million chest
meticulously
X-rays
examine the elephant's
simultaneously.
foot
Such
like
levels
never
of
before.
radiation were
The
beyond
results of
human
the scans
tolerance.
caused unease
Demise
among
was a
scientists.
definite outcome,
Despite
and it
the
would
hardened
occur
exterior,
rapidly.
the mass
the world
is
was
still
informed
teeming
too
with
slowly
radioactive
about the
activity.
incident.
Within its peculiar composition,